The ship was old. Kang T-Sun knew every sound it made. He knew the soft hum of the engine when it was happy. He knew the angry rattle when something was wrong. Tonight, the ship was quiet, moving through the dark space like a tired animal looking for home. T-Sun sat in the captain's chair, his feet up on the control panel. He was eating dried noodles from a small cup. The stars outside the window were beautiful, but he had seen them too many times. After 10 years of flying cargo ships, the universe felt small. "You are going to get crumbs everywhere," said a voice behind him. Beak Sujai walked into the cockpit. She was shorter than T-Sun, with oil stains on her hands and tiredness in her eyes. She was the engineer of the Ember, and she was very good at her job. She was also very good at complaining. "I cleaned last week," T-Sun said. "That was 3 weeks ago." Time moves differently in space. Sujai rolled her eyes and sat down in the co-pilot seat. She looked at the navigation screen. They were in the outer fringe, far from any planets or stations. It was a lonely part of space, but it was also the fastest route to their delivery point. Then the alarm started. It was not a loud alarm. It was a soft beeping sound like a heartbeat. T-Sun lowered his feet and looked at the screen. A small light was blinking. "Distress signal," he said. Sujai leaned forward. "Out here, there is nothing out here." "Someone is out here now." The signal was weak. It came from a location about 30 minutes away at full speed. T-Sun looked at the coordinates. There were no stations nearby, no planets, no trade routes, just empty space and whatever was sending that signal. "We should ignore it," Sujai said. "It could be pirates. They use fake signals to trap ships." T-Sun knew she was right. Pirates did use that trick, but the signal was so weak. If it was a trap, it was a very bad trap. Real pirates would make the signal stronger to attract more victims. "It could be someone who needs help," he said. "It could be someone who wants to kill us." T-Sun thought for a moment. Then he turned the ship toward the signal. "You are an idiot," Sujai said, but she did not try to stop him. The Ember moved through the darkness. T-Sun watched the scanner carefully. After 20 minutes he saw something. A small object floating alone in the void. It was an escape pod, barely bigger than a closet. "No larger ships nearby," Sujai reported. "Whatever happened, it happened a while ago." T-Sun brought the Ember close to the pod. Through the small window of the pod he could see a shape inside. It was not moving. "I am going to bring it in," he said. "And if there is a bomb inside, then you can say you told me so." Sujai made an angry sound, but she went to prepare the cargo bay. The pod was cold when they opened it. Ice had formed on the inside of the glass. T-Sun looked inside and stopped breathing for a moment. There was a woman inside, but she was not human. Her skin was covered in scales, pale blue and silver like winter frost. Her hair was long and white, falling around her face like fresh snow. Her eyes were closed, but he could see that her features were sharp and beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. She wore dark armor that looked expensive, with symbols he did not recognize. She was also dying. Her body was shaking, small tremors that made her scales rattle softly. Her lips were turning gray. T-Sun had heard about cold-blooded species before. They could not make their own heat like humans. In the freezing void of space, she had no warmth to keep her alive. "Help me get her out," T-Sun said. "Are you serious?" Sujai stared at the alien woman. "Do you know what she is? Those symbols on her armor, that is Kelvari. They are hunters, T-Sun. They hunt other species for sport." T-Sun looked at the woman again. The Kelvari were famous and not in a good way. They were one of the most feared species in the galaxy. Fast, strong, and completely without mercy. They saw other beings as prey. But this one was just a woman, alone and freezing to death. "She is dying," he said simply. He reached into the pod and lifted her out. She was lighter than he expected, and so cold that touching her almost hurt. He carried her into the ship, moving quickly toward his own quarters. "Get every blanket we have," he told Sujai, "and turn up the heat, all of it. The whole ship. Do you know how much power that will use?" "I do not care." Sujai disappeared, still complaining. T-Sun laid the woman on his bed. Her trembling was getting worse. He wrapped her in his own blanket, then added 2 more that Sujai brought. The ship's heating system hummed louder as the temperature began to rise. T-Sun sat beside the bed and watched. The woman's breathing was very slow. He did not know if she would survive, but he would try. Hours passed. The ship became uncomfortably warm for humans, but T-Sun did not complain. He wiped sweat from his forehead and waited. Slowly, so slowly, the color began to return to the woman's scales. The gray left her lips. Her trembling became less. Then her eyes opened. They were gold, with pupils like a snake. They locked onto T-Sun with an intensity that made him want to step back, but he did not move. "Where am I?" Her voice was cold and sharp, like ice breaking. "You are on my ship," T-Sun said calmly. "The Ember, I found your escape pod." The woman tried to sit up, then fell back with a hiss of pain. She looked at the blankets around her, then at T-Sun. Her golden eyes were full of suspicion. "You are human," she said. "Yes." "Why did you help me? Humans are prey." T-Sun smiled slightly. "I found someone dying alone in space. I helped. That is what humans do." The woman stared at him like he was speaking a language she did not understand. Then her expression changed. Some of the coldness left her eyes, replaced by something that might have been confusion. "I am Velith," she said after a long pause, "Crown Princess of the Kelvari Empire." T-Sun blinked. A princess. He had just saved a princess of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Sujai was going to kill him. "I am Kang T-Sun," he said, "just a cargo hauler." Velith looked around the small, messy room. Her nose wrinkled slightly. "This is a very poor ship for a rescuer of royalty." "It is the only ship I have." For a moment something flickered across her face. It might have been amusement. Then the cold mask returned. "I require refuge," she said. Her voice was stiff, like the words were difficult to say. "There are those who wish me dead. I escaped, but they will follow. I need somewhere to hide, somewhere warm." T-Sun studied her. A Kelvari princess, running for her life, asking a human for help. The universe was full of strange things. "My ship is warm," he said. "You can stay." Velith's golden eyes widened slightly. She had expected him to refuse, to demand payment, to ask questions. Instead, he had simply agreed. "You are a strange creature," she said quietly. T-Sun smiled. "I get that a lot." Outside the window, the stars continued their endless dance. And somewhere in the darkness, hunters were already beginning to move. 3 days passed on the Ember. 3 days of uncomfortable heat, strange silences, and a princess who looked at everything like it might attack her. Velith was recovering, but she was not easy to live with. She complained about the food. She complained about the small rooms. She complained about the smell, though T-Sun thought his ship smelled perfectly fine, mostly like engine oil and old noodles, but that was normal. "Your species eats this?" Velith asked on the second day, holding up a package of dried rice. "Yes," T-Sun said, "it is good. It looks like something we feed to prisoners." "Then your prisoners eat well." Velith made a sound that might have been disgust, but she ate the rice anyway. T-Sun noticed that she ate everything he gave her, even while insulting it. Sujai avoided the princess as much as possible. She stayed in the engine room, coming out only to eat and glare at Velith. "She is going to get us killed," Sujai whispered to T-Sun when they were alone. "You do not hide a Kelvari princess. That is like hiding a bomb and hoping no one notices." She needed help. She needs a lot of things. A nicer attitude would be a good start. T-Sun could not argue with that. Velith was cold in every way. She barely thanked him for anything. She ordered him around like a servant. She looked at him like he was a small animal that had somehow learned to talk. But he also noticed other things. He noticed how she flinched at sudden sounds. He noticed how she checked the doors multiple times before sleeping. He noticed the fear hiding behind her golden eyes when she thought no one was watching. Something terrible had happened to her. Someone she trusted had tried to kill her. That kind of thing left marks that did not show on the outside. On the fourth day, the heating system broke. Sujai came running into the common room with black oil on her face. "We have a problem," she said. "The main heating unit is damaged. I can fix it, but it will take 6 hours." The ship was already getting colder. T-Sun could feel it. For him, it was uncomfortable. For Velith, it could be deadly. He looked at the princess. She sat in the corner, wrapped in blankets, but he could see the slight trembling beginning again. Her scales were starting to lose their color. "Can we do anything temporary?" he asked Sujai. "I can keep the engine room warm. The heat from the engines will help, but only that room." T-Sun nodded. "Velith, come with me." The princess looked at him with narrowed eyes. "I do not take orders from prey." "Then freeze to death, your choice." For a moment, anger flashed across her face. Then the cold reached a little deeper, and she shivered. Without another word, she stood and followed him. The engine room was small and crowded with machines, but it was warm. The engines of the Ember were old, and they produced a lot of heat. Sujai had set up a small space with blankets and cushions where they could sit. Velith settled into the warmth with visible relief. Some of the tension left her body. T-Sun sat nearby, giving her space. For a while, neither of them spoke. The engines hummed around them, a constant, comforting sound. Then Velith broke the silence. "Why are you helping me?" T-Sun looked at her. "I already told you you needed help." "That is not a reason. Everything has a cost. What do you want from me?" "Nothing." Velith stared at him. "That is impossible. My people do not help without expecting something in return. No intelligent species does. You are either lying or stupid." "Maybe I am stupid," T-Sun said with a small smile, "but I am not lying." The princess was quiet for a long moment. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer. "Among the Kelvari, warmth is weakness," she said. "We are cold creatures. We believe that cold makes us strong. Emotion is warm, attachment is warm, so we cut those things away. We become sharp and hard like ice." T-Sun listened without interrupting. "I was raised to be the perfect heir," Velith continued. "Cold, efficient, ruthless. I was taught that caring for others made you vulnerable, that love was a weapon your enemies could use against you." "That sounds lonely." Velith's golden eyes met his. For a second the mask slipped, and he saw something raw underneath. Then it was gone. "It is the Kelvari way. It is not the human way. I know you are strange creatures." She looked at him with open curiosity now. "You make your own heat. Your bodies burn constantly, keeping you warm even in darkness. We think it is wasteful, inefficient, but now I wonder if it means something else." "Like what?" "Like maybe your warmth is not just physical. Maybe it is in your nature. You burn on the inside." T-Sun thought about that. He had never considered it before. Being warm was just normal. He did not think about it any more than he thought about breathing. "Maybe you are right," he said. "Humans feel things strongly. We get angry and sad and happy and scared. We love people we have just met. We cry at sad stories. We fight for strangers." "That sounds exhausting." "It is, but it is also beautiful." The ship groaned softly as the temperature continued to drop outside the engine room. Velith moved slightly closer to T-Sun, probably without realizing it. He pretended not to notice. "Someone I trusted tried to kill me," she said suddenly. The words came out in a rush like she had been holding them inside. A member of my own court. They wanted my position, so they tried to make it look like an accident. When that failed, they sent assassins. I am sorry. Why, you do not know me. I do not need to know you to feel sorry for you. Velith looked at him like he had said something impossible. Among her people, sympathy for strangers probably was impossible. Caring for someone you had just met would be seen as madness. Your jacket, she said. What about it? It is warm, give it to me. T-Sun laughed. You could ask nicely. Kelvari do not ask nicely. Maybe they should. For a moment their eyes locked. Then, to his surprise, Velith's lips curved into something that was almost a smile. Please give me your jacket, she said. The word please sounded strange in her mouth, like she was speaking a foreign language. T-Sun took off his jacket and handed it to her. She wrapped it around herself immediately, pressing her face into the fabric. She breathed in deeply. You smell like engine oil and bad food, she said. Thank you. It was not a compliment. But she did not give the jacket back. She sat there, wrapped in blankets and his jacket, looking smaller than she had before, less like a princess and more like a person. Hours passed. Sujai worked on the heating system while T-Sun and Velith sat together in the engine room. They did not talk much, but the silence was comfortable now, different from before. At some point, Velith fell asleep. She slumped sideways, her head coming to rest against T-Sun's shoulder. He froze, unsure what to do. Her scales were cool against his skin, but not as cold as before. The warmth of the room and his jacket had helped. He did not move her. He sat very still, letting her sleep. When Sujai came to tell them the heating was fixed, she stopped in the doorway. She looked at the princess sleeping against T-Sun's shoulder. She looked at T-Sun, who raised a finger to his lips. Sujai shook her head slowly. You are in trouble, she whispered. I know, T-Sun whispered back. But he was smiling. Later, when Velith woke up, she pulled away quickly. Her scales flushed a slightly darker blue, which T-Sun suspected was a Kelvari blush. That never happened, she said sharply. What never happened? Exactly. She stood and walked out of the engine room with her head held high, still wearing his jacket. T-Sun watched her go. Strange creatures, he murmured to himself, but he was still smiling. The space station was called Haven Point. It was not a nice place. It sat at the edge of controlled space, where laws were more like suggestions. Pirates traded stolen goods in its markets. Criminals hid from their enemies, and desperate people came to disappear. T-Sun did not want to stop there, but the Ember needed fuel, and Haven Point was the only station within reach. Stay on the ship, he told Velith. Keep the doors locked. Velith looked at him with annoyance. I am not a child. No, you are a princess that half the galaxy is looking for. If anyone sees you, we are dead. Velith opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She knew he was right. T-Sun and Sujai walked through the crowded corridors of Haven Point. The station smelled like rust and sweat. Aliens of every species pushed past them, speaking in a dozen different languages. T-Sun kept his head down and moved quickly. They bought fuel, they bought food. They were walking back to the ship when T-Sun felt something cold in his stomach. He stopped walking. What is wrong? Sujai asked. We are being watched. Sujai looked around casually. Then her face went pale. Near a food stall, 3 tall figures stood in the shadows. They wore dark armor covered in hunting trophies. Their scales were black and red, their eyes yellow like dying stars. Void Fangs, the Kelvari Empire's most elite hunters. They found us, Sujai whispered. Keep walking, do not run. They walked faster. Behind them the hunters began to move. They did not run either. They did not need to. They were predators. They enjoyed the chase. T-Sun's mind raced. The Ember was docked in Bay 7. That was 5 minutes away at normal speed. The hunters would catch them in 2. The maintenance tunnels, Sujai said suddenly. This way. She pulled him into a narrow side corridor. They ran now, their footsteps echoing off metal walls. Behind them they heard the hunters following, not running, walking. They were playing with their prey. The maintenance tunnels were dark and smelled like chemicals. Sujai knew the layout from previous visits. She led T-Sun through a maze of pipes and wires, doubling back twice to confuse their trail. They emerged near the docking bays. Bay 7 was close. T-Sun could see the Ember through a window, sitting alone and waiting. Then the lights went out. Emergency red lights flickered on, casting everything in blood-colored shadows. Over the station speakers, a voice spoke in the Kelvari language. T-Sun did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. It was a hunting call. They cut the power, Sujai said. They are clearing the area. People were running now, fleeing from the docking bays. They knew what Kelvari hunters meant. No one wanted to be nearby when the killing started. T-Sun grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall. Sujai picked up a metal pipe. They were not warriors. They had no weapons, but they were not going to die without a fight. Get to the ship, T-Sun said. Start the engines, I will get Velith. Are you insane? You cannot fight them alone. I am not going to fight them. I am going to slow them down. Sujai looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded and ran toward the docking controls. T-Sun ran toward the Ember. The bay was empty now, dark except for the red emergency lights. He could hear the hunters moving in the shadows. They were close. He reached the ship and slammed his hand on the door control. It opened with a hiss. Inside, Velith stood with a knife in her hand, ready to fight. We need to go, T-Sun said. Now. I know, I heard the hunting call. Her face was calm, but her eyes were afraid. They sent void fangs. They really want me dead. Not today. They ran toward the cockpit. Through the windows, T-Sun could see shadows moving outside. The hunters were surrounding the ship. There were more than 3 now. He counted 6, maybe 7. The engines roared to life. Sujai was already in the pilot's seat, her hands flying over the controls. We cannot take off, she said. They have locked the docking clamps. Then unlock them. It is not that simple. The controls are outside. T-Sun looked at the hunters gathering around the ship. He looked at Velith. He made a decision. Keep the engines ready, he said. When I give the signal, fly. What are you going to do? Velith grabbed his arm. Her grip was strong. You cannot go out there. They will kill you. They will try. He pulled free and grabbed the fire extinguisher he had brought. He also grabbed a bag of chemical powder from the supply closet and a flashlight. Then he opened the side door and stepped out into the bay. The hunters saw him immediately. They stopped, surprised. A human walking toward them with only a fire extinguisher. It was so strange that they hesitated. T-Sun used that hesitation. He threw the bag of powder into the air and sprayed it with the fire extinguisher. A massive cloud of white and yellow filled the bay, blinding everyone. Then he turned on the flashlight, aiming it directly at where the hunters' eyes would be. The Kelvari had excellent night vision. Their eyes were designed for darkness, but that meant they were sensitive to sudden bright light. The flashlight in the chemical cloud created a blinding explosion of reflected light. The hunters screamed in pain and anger. T-Sun ran, not toward the ship but toward the docking controls. He heard the hunters chasing him now, no longer playing, genuinely furious. He ducked under a claw that would have taken his head off. He rolled past another hunter who was still rubbing his eyes. The controls were ahead. He slammed his fist on the emergency release. The docking clamps opened with a loud clang. Sujai, go, he shouted into his communicator. The Ember's engines roared. The ship began to lift off the bay floor, but the hunters were between T-Sun and the ship now. 5 of them, their vision returning, their eyes full of murder. He was going to die here. Then he heard a sound behind him. The ship's cargo ramp was opening. Velith stood there, her white hair flying in the engine wind, her golden eyes blazing. "Run, human," she screamed. T-Sun ran. The hunters ran after him, but Velith was doing something. She had grabbed a fuel line and aimed it at the floor between T-Sun and his pursuers. Then she hit the emergency ignition switch. Fire exploded across the bay. The hunters fell back, shielding themselves from the flames. T-Sun leaped. He caught the edge of the cargo ramp. His fingers slipped. He was falling. Then Velith's hand grabbed his wrist. Her cold fingers wrapped around his arm like steel. "I have you," she said. She pulled him up onto the ramp as the ember rose into the air. The bay doors opened automatically as the ship approached, and then they were out, flying through the asteroid field around the station. Behind them, hunter ships were launching. The chase was not over. "They are following," Sujai reported from the cockpit. 3 ships fast. T-Sun climbed into the pilot's seat, his hands shaking. He took control of the ship and dove into the asteroid field. The rocks were huge and moving fast, spinning through space in chaotic patterns. Most pilots avoided asteroid fields. They were too dangerous. But T-Sun was not most pilots. He flew through the asteroids like he was dancing, threading the needle between rocks that would crush the ship if he made one mistake. The hunter ships followed, but they were not as good. They were used to open space, to easy chases. This kind of flying was insane. One hunter ship clipped an asteroid. It spun out of control and exploded. Another tried to follow T-Sun through a narrow gap. It did not fit. The ship crumpled like paper. The third ship fell back. It knew it could not win this chase. It turned and fled. T-Sun kept flying until they were clear of the asteroid field. Then he collapsed back in his seat, breathing hard. His heart was pounding so fast he thought it might explode. "That was insane," Sujai said. Her voice was shaking. "That was completely insane." "I know." He felt a hand on his shoulder. Velith was standing behind him, her face unreadable. "You almost died," she said quietly. "Yes. For me, you almost died for me." T-Sun looked up at her. Her golden eyes were not cold anymore. They were full of something he had not seen before: confusion, wonder, and something else that looked almost like fear. "I told you," he said with a tired smile. "That is what humans do." Velith did not say anything. She just stood there, her hand on his shoulder, staring at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Behind them, the stars continued to burn. And somewhere in the darkness, an empire was gathering its forces for the real hunt to begin. The hidden moon had no name. It was just a small rock floating in the shadow of a gas giant, forgotten by maps and ignored by travelers. That made it perfect for hiding. Sujai landed the ember in a crater, using the high walls to hide the ship from scanners. Then she went to check the engines, muttering about the damage from their escape. T-Sun was not in good shape. During the escape, when he was fighting the hunters, one of them had caught him. He had not felt it at the time. The excitement and fear had blocked out everything else. But now, sitting in his cabin, he could see the wound. 3 deep cuts across his back, from shoulder to hip. The Kelvari hunter's claws had gone through his jacket and shirt like they were made of paper. Blood had soaked through his clothes and was now dripping onto the floor. "You are injured." T-Sun looked up. Velith stood in the doorway, her golden eyes fixed on the blood. "It is not bad," he lied. Velith walked closer. She looked at the wound and her face changed. The color drained from her scales, turning them almost white. "Those are hunter marks," she whispered. "They are poisoned. Why did you not say something?" "Poisoned?" T-Sun felt his heart go cold. He had heard about Kelvari poison. It was famous for being extremely painful and extremely deadly. "I have antidote," Velith said. She was already moving, opening a small pouch on her belt. Inside were several tiny vials of blue liquid. All Kelvari royalty carry it. Our own assassins use the same poison. She knelt behind him and he felt her cool fingers touching the wound. He hissed in pain. "This will hurt," she said. Then she poured the antidote directly onto the cuts. For a moment, T-Sun thought he was dying. The pain was like fire, burning through his entire body. He gripped the edge of his bed so hard that his knuckles turned white. He wanted to scream, but he clenched his jaw and stayed silent. Then slowly the pain faded. His vision cleared. He could breathe again. "The poison is neutralized," Velith said. Her voice was strange, almost shaky. "But you need to rest. The wound is deep." "Thank you." Velith did not answer. She was staring at her hands. They were covered in his blood. Red human blood, bright against her blue scales. "You are too warm," she said quietly. "What?" "Your blood, it is warm. I can feel it." She looked at her hands like she had never seen anything like them before. "My blood is cold. If you cut me, the blood would feel like water from a mountain stream. But yours is like holding fire." T-Sun did not know what to say. He watched as Velith slowly wiped her hands on a cloth, her movements careful and slow. "You should have told me you were hurt," she said. Her voice was harder now, almost angry. "You could have died. The poison works quickly. If I had not seen the blood, you would be dead by morning. I did not want you to worry." "Worry?" Velith stared at him. "Why would I worry about prey?" But her voice cracked on the last word. She looked away quickly, hiding her face. T-Sun lay down on his bed, too tired to sit anymore. His back hurt, but the sharp pain was fading into a dull ache. The antidote was working. "You should sleep," Velith said. "I will watch over you." "You do not have to." "I know." She sat down in the chair beside his bed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The ship was quiet, just the soft hum of life support systems and the distant sound of Sujai working on the engines. "I used to think humans were weak," Velith said suddenly. "My teachers told me that warm-blooded species were inefficient. You waste energy making heat. You let emotions control you. You form attachments that make you vulnerable." T-Sun listened, his eyes half closed. "But I was wrong," she continued. "Your warmth is not weakness. It is something else entirely, something I do not have a word for." "What do you mean?" Velith was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and placed her hand on his chest, over his heart. He could feel the coolness of her palm through his torn shirt. "Your heart beats so fast," she said softly. "Even now, injured and tired, you burn like a small star. It never stops. You carry that fire everywhere you go. Everyone has a heartbeat. Not like yours. The Kelvari heart beats slowly, conserving energy. We are efficient, cold, but you waste your fire on everyone around you. You give your warmth to strangers. You nearly died for someone you barely know." She looked at him with those golden eyes, and for the first time they were not cold. They were confused and searching in something else. Something that looked like hunger, but not the predator kind. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you burn so brightly for others?" T-Sun thought about the question. It was hard to think clearly. The medicine was making him sleepy. "Because the universe is cold," he said finally, "and dark. And if we do not give warmth to each other, then what is the point of being alive?" Velith stared at him. Her hand was still on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "That is either very wise or very foolish," she said. "Probably both." She almost smiled. It was small, just a slight curve of her lips, but it was real. "Sleep," she said. "I will be here when you wake up." T-Sun closed his eyes. Within moments he was asleep. When he woke up, the lights in the cabin were dim. He did not know how much time had passed. Hours, maybe. His back still hurt, but it was a healing hurt now, not a dying hurt. Something warm was pressed against his side. He looked down and saw Velith. She was curled up beside him on the narrow bed, her head resting on his arm. Her eyes were closed, her breathing slow and even. She was asleep. Her hand was still on his chest, over his heart. T-Sun did not move. He barely breathed. He just lay there looking at her. In sleep she looked different, younger, softer. All the coldness was gone from her face. She looked like what she was, a young woman who had been betrayed by everyone she trusted, running for her life in a hostile universe. She had said she would watch over him. Instead, she had fallen asleep beside him, seeking the warmth she had been taught to reject. Something in his chest felt tight. Not pain, something else. Something that scared him more than the hunters had. He reached up slowly and brushed a strand of white hair from her face. Her scales were warmer than before. His body heat was seeping into her, keeping her alive. "You are not prey," he whispered, "and I am not just a warm blood." Velith stirred slightly but did not wake. She moved closer to him, pressing herself against his side like she was trying to absorb his warmth. When Sujai came to check on them an hour later, she found them both asleep. The princess of the Kelvari Empire, curled against a human cargo hauler like he was the only safe place in the universe. Sujai stood in the doorway for a long moment. Then she shook her head and quietly closed the door. Later, when they both woke up, Velith did not pull away immediately. She lay there, looking at T-Sun with those golden eyes, her face unreadable. "Among my people," she said slowly, "sharing body heat is an act of deep intimacy. It means you trust someone with your life." T-Sun felt his face grow hot. "I did not know that." "I know, that is why I am telling you now." She paused. "I do not do this with anyone. I have never done this with anyone." "Never." Kelvari do not trust. We survive, we compete. We win or we die. Trust is weakness. She looked at him. "But I trusted you, without thinking. My body chose you before my mind could stop it." T-Sun did not know what to say. His heart was beating fast again, that human fire burning bright. "A message came," Velith said. Her voice was different now, harder. "From my father, Emperor Norath. He wishes to meet, to negotiate my return." The warmth in the room seemed to fade. "What will you do?" T-Sun asked. Velith sat up. She looked at him for a long moment. "Once I would have gone back without question, faced my enemies alone. That is the Kelvari way." She reached out and touched his face, her cool fingers gentle against his cheek. "But I have learned a new way. I will face my father, but I will not go alone." She stood up and walked toward the door. Then she stopped and looked back. "Whatever happens," she said, "thank you for the warmth." Then she was gone, leaving T-Sun with a healing wound, a full heart, and the knowledge that the hardest battle was still ahead. The diplomatic vessel hung in space like a frozen palace. It was massive, covered in ice-white metal and black symbols. Ships from both sides surrounded it, Kelvari war cruisers bristling with weapons, and a single small cargo ship that looked like a mouse among wolves. T-Sun stared at the vessel through the window of the Ember. His wound still hurt, but he could walk. He could fight if he had to. He hoped he would not have to. "You do not have to come with me," Velith said. She stood beside him, dressed in formal Kelvari armor. The dark metal made her look like a warrior queen, cold and beautiful and deadly. "Yes, I do. My father will not spare you. Humans mean nothing to him, less than nothing." "I know." Velith looked at him. Her golden eyes were soft in a way they had never been before. "You are a very stupid creature," she said. "You keep telling me that." "Because it is true." But she reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cool, but the grip was strong. "Thank you for being stupid." The airlock opened, and they walked into the diplomatic vessel together. The main hall was enormous. The walls were made of something that looked like frozen water, blue and clear and cold. Kelvari guards lined both sides, their armor gleaming, their eyes watching every movement. At the far end of the hall, on a throne made of black ice, sat Emperor Noreth. He was old. His scales were darker than Velith's, almost black with streaks of silver that showed his age. His eyes were gold like hers, but colder, much colder. They held no warmth at all. Beside him stood a younger Kelvari, a male with red markings on his scales. He looked at Velith with barely hidden hatred. T-Sun guessed this was one of the rivals who had tried to kill her. "My daughter returns," Noreth said. His voice echoed through the hall like ice cracking. "Running home like a wounded animal, and she brings a pet." Velith's grip on T-Sun's hand tightened, then released. She walked forward alone, stopping at the base of the throne. "I did not run, father. I survived, as you taught me. I taught you to be strong. Instead, you hide with warm-blooded vermin." Noreth's eyes moved to T-Sun. "This creature, this human, he has touched you. I can smell him on your scales." Murmurs ran through the guards. T-Sun saw their hands move toward their weapons. "He saved my life," Velith said, "multiple times, without asking for anything in return." "Then he is a fool." "No," Velith's voice was firm. "He is something you do not understand, something none of us understand. He is warm." Noreth laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Warm? What is warmth worth? Does it win battles? Does it build empires? Does it make you strong?" "It makes you human." "Exactly, weak, emotional prey." Velith did not flinch. "I used to believe that. I was wrong." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "You have been corrupted. This creature has poisoned your mind with his weakness. I will deal with him myself." He raised his hand. The guards began to move toward T-Sun. "Stop!" Velith's voice cut through the hall like a blade. She turned to face her father directly. "I invoke the right of challenge." The hall went silent. The guards froze. Even Noreth's cold expression flickered with surprise. "The right of challenge," Velith continued, "ancient law of the Kelvari. Any member of the royal family may challenge the Emperor for the throne. Combat decides. The winner rules." "You would fight me?" Noreth stood slowly. He was taller than Velith, broader, more powerful. "Your own father." "You tried to have me killed. You are not my father. You are just an obstacle." Noreth studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Very well, the old ways will decide." He stepped down from his throne and drew a long blade from his side. "When you die, your human will follow. His death will be slow." Velith drew her own blade. It was smaller than her father's, but she held it like it was part of her arm. T-Sun wanted to help. Every part of him screamed to do something, anything. But this was not his fight. This was Kelvari tradition. If he interfered, Velith would lose everything. So he watched. The fight was brutal. Noreth was stronger, more experienced. He moved like a storm, his blade singing through the air. Velith was faster, more precise, but every time their blades met, she was pushed back. Blood appeared on her arm, then her leg, then her face. She was losing. T-Sun clenched his fists so hard his nails cut into his palms. He could feel his heart pounding, that human fire burning inside him. Velith fell to one knee. Her blade was knocked from her hand. Noreth stood over her, his weapon raised for the killing blow. "Pathetic," he said. "You were never worthy of the throne." Velith looked up at him. Then slowly she smiled. "You are right," she said. "The old me was never worthy, but I am not the old me anymore." She moved. It was so fast that T-Sun barely saw it. She rolled, grabbed her fallen blade and struck upward in one fluid motion. Her blade found the gap in Noreth's armor, sliding between his scales and into his chest. The Emperor staggered. He looked down at the blade in his body, then at his daughter. "How?" he whispered. "You taught me to be cold," Velith said, "to be heartless, but I found something better. I found warmth. And warmth gives you something to fight for." Noreth fell. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed through the silent hall. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the guards knelt. One by one, every Kelvari in the hall dropped to their knees before Velith. The rival who had tried to kill her looked terrified. He tried to run, but guards caught him before he reached the door. Velith stood alone in the center of the hall, bloody but alive. She looked at the kneeling guards, at the empty throne, at the body of her father. Then she turned and looked at T-Sun. He smiled at her. She walked toward him, her steps slow and tired. When she reached him, she stopped. "I am Empress now," she said. "Congratulations. I have an empire to lead, wars to end, laws to change. My people need me." T-Sun felt something cold settle in his chest. He understood what she was saying. She was royalty. He was just a cargo hauler with a broken ship. They belonged in different worlds. "I understand," he said quietly. "Do you?" Velith reached out and took his hand again. "Because I need advisors, people I trust, and there is only one person in this universe I trust completely." T-Sun blinked. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I need warmth. My empire is cold. My people are cold. I am cold." She stepped closer, her golden eyes locked with his. "You showed me that there is another way, a better way. I want to bring that warmth to my people." "You want me to stay with you?" "I am not asking you to stay. I am asking you to help me change everything." T-Sun looked at her. This cold princess who had demanded his jacket, complained about his food, and fallen asleep in his arms. This warrior who had just killed her own father to protect what she believed in. This woman who had found warmth in the coldest place in the universe. "My ship is very small," he said. "My ships are very large. I do not know anything about running an empire." "Neither do I. We will learn together. Your people might not accept a human. My people will accept what their empress tells them to accept." She paused. "Is that a yes?" T-Sun laughed. He could not help it. This was insane. All of it was insane. A week ago, he was hauling cargo through empty space. Now he was standing in the throne room of an alien empire, being asked to help rule it by a princess who had once called him prey. "Yes," he said, "it is a yes." Velith smiled. It was a real smile, warm in a way that Kelvari smiles were never supposed to be. Behind them, Sujai groaned loudly. "This is ridiculous," she said. "I am an engineer, not a politician." "You are coming too," Velith said. "I need someone to fix things when they break." "Everything is going to break constantly." "Then you will stay busy." Sujai opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. She looked at T-Sun, at his stupid, happy smile, and sighed. "Fine," she said, "but I want a bigger engine room." Velith nodded. "You will have the biggest engine room in the Empire." They walked out of the diplomatic vessel together, the new empress of the Kelvari and her human advisors. The guards watched them go, confused and uncertain. Everything was about to change. Later, aboard the Imperial flagship, T-Sun stood at a window watching the stars. Velith came to stand beside him. "Are you scared?" she asked. "Terrified." "Good, so am I." She leaned against him, her cool body pressing against his warm one. "But I am less scared when I am with you." T-Sun put his arm around her. Outside the window, 1,000 ships waited, ready to follow their new empress into an uncertain future. "The universe is still cold and dark," Velith said softly. "Yes, but not as cold as before." She looked up at him. "Because now I have my own star." T-Sun smiled and held her closer. Somewhere behind them, Sujai made a gagging sound, but she was smiling too. The cold empire was about to learn what warmth could do. And the universe would never be the same.